Go. So today I want to talk about awareness. Uh, it's interesting because we can only cultivate awareness in the present moment. Isn't it so fascinating that the present moment is actually the only thing that's ever real? And even that could be debatable, but like the past is just us thinking about things that have already happened in our brains, and the future is us just thinking about things that haven't even happened yet. This idea of like we time travel in those ways. But how often are you actually in the present moment? For me, a lot of times I was thinking about the past or worrying about the future in the present moment, not actually being where I was at all because I was thinking, oh, shoot, that thing I did last week, or oh, no, that thing that's going to happen tomorrow. And then suddenly I'm looking around going, oh, wait a minute. Am I even being here now? There's that, famous book, the Be Here Now book, that pretty much in a very esoteric way goes into the fact that like now is really all we ever have. And even as I'm talking about it, it's the next now already. So we have a time lapse in our brain, even the things that you're hearing coming out of my mouth and the visual you're seeing of me moving has like a millisecond delay, even that your brain has to process that information and then relay it back to you. So we're not even really living in real time at all. So the now moment is the closest that we can get to really experiencing everything. How often are we actually doing that? How much are we living in our brains somewhere else while physically being where we have the most ability, but mentally worrying mostly, I think, is what we spend most of our times in our heads doing. It's not even beneficial. We're not like daydreaming about positive things to come. We're concerned about what tomorrow brings or what we did yesterday. That's not beneficial or helpful at all. The reason I want to talk about the awareness part of it is because if we're not aware of where we're at in our brains and where we can be in the present moment, then there's absolutely nothing we can do about it. Awareness is really the first key to say, okay, now that's tangible. Now I can say I'm at least aware of what I'm thinking and where I'm thinking, to be able to say, even if you can't get back to the present moment, to at least know that you're not in it, you know? Most of my depression as a young person, I feel like, was because I was trapped in my head, or thought I was, in the past or the future. And I would get stuck in these, I'd call them hypothetical conversations, where I would be like planning out arguments I was never actually going to have with people I probably was never going to meet. What a waste of brain space, instead of just enjoying where I was at any of those given moments. How I might remember things in the, and if the past is only made up of the memories that we get from present moments, then how much are we really living in to get those future memories, instead of just remembering when we sat around remembering things that we didn't want to remember? By being here now, we take all the power back. It's almost like if we were surfing. I like to think in water terms a lot. So it's like if you were surfing on a wave, you could get, if you're not there, you get tumbled in, you get, washed around in it. So this ever present surge that we're on the edge of endlessly, because there is no future until like it doesn't exist, it's ever just every new present that we get. So we're just on that endless precipice that just keeps on going, and we're all riding it together. A quote that I love that's oddly worded, and I'd like to rephrase it at some point, but it's not my quote, so I'm not going to do that, is the psychopath drowns in the same water that the mystic floats upon. It's this idea that if experience is this watery way, that we can get washed up in it and sink and thrash and drown, or we can surrender and let go and float. We can only do that by being aware that we're in the water to begin with, and that there's something we can do about it. That something is breathing. If you guys want to take a deep breath with me, you don't have to, but I recommend it highly. Because that's the only way that I get anywhere that I'm getting with any of the things that I'm doing. So I'm going to do that here for a minute with you authentically. It used to be something that I would hide, and I would go in a corner so nobody could see me doing it. And now I'm getting better at just going, oh gosh, I'm aware that I am not even breathing deeply. Let me do that for a second. So for me, the very first awareness was the awareness that I wasn't breathing, that I would get anxious and anxiety, and I would really what I was doing was hyperventilating. Anxiety attacks, if you've ever gotten those, I can talk you out of one of those in a quick beat with a breathing technique that I do, because it's literally your brain is freaking out about something that's not real, and then your body says, this is a physical affront to me, do something. And so you start breathing shallower. And then your body has something to panic about and you freak out and you go, oh no, what's happening? You're not breathing deeply and your body's reacting to that. So that was one of the first tricks that I learned, that if I can be aware enough in the moment to realize that I'm not taking a deep breath and take a deep breath, well, that changes everything. You guys have heard me talk about, listening to trees and all that stuff. And that's how I do all of that, is by deep breathing. By breathing deeply, you slow your heart rate down, you lower your blood pressure, and I get myself on a different frequency where I can feel and hear and experience those things that I couldn't otherwise. A lot of times, if we're not breathing deeply, our bodies will make us yawn. It's so funny that politeness has made that a weird thing, but it's really your brain getting extra oxygen to your head. So when people do that, I'm like, you're trying so hard to comprehend what I'm saying. I've also had a message that wasn't for everybody, and they straight up pass out. They'll just fall asleep. And I'm like, instead of being offended, I'm like, okay, that wasn't, maybe you got it in your unconscious state. You needed to absorb it. So I'm working through all of those awarenesses, Breath was the biggest one for me. Can I tell you a short, weird story? I'm practicing being more vulnerable with y'all because I feel really comfortable here and I feel like it's accepted. But as always, take everything with a grain of salt. This is only my unique perspective. Unless you're a slug. Unless you're a slug? Yeah, man, then what? I could have been a slug at one point. I love slugs. They breathe in a hole in their back? They're crazy. Slugs. I love them so much. Whales do that too. Speaking of, yes, you're right. I never thought about that. That's a good point. Wow.
Okay, we just diverted the
whales get lungs. This is how it goes. I love it. Speaking of bugs, when I was in high school, I went through, and you guys are the only third people I've ever spoken out loud to this about. I went through a werewolf phase where it's not even that I thought I was a werewolf so much as I really wanted that life. And I had a little group of kids in high school and we were all like, yeah, we're like were-animals. We had a little gang. And I realized over time that it wasn't that I was trying to make myself believe something that so hard. I said, well, if only I believe hard enough, maybe one day it'll happen and I can go do that. It was something I had to let go. When I was in high school, I wore tails a lot as a comfort thing. I was really uncomfortable. And so I would wear that as a safety blanket, and kids would steal them off of me and destroy them. And I would just make a new one and bring it in the next day. But it was almost just a way to cope with existence. Oh, if only I was special and different and had this power that was beyond just me being a person, then I have some more control over life and what I'm doing here, even though it by nature would be an out of control experience. I'm sure if it had actually happened, I'm sure I would have been like, oh no, I take it back. I don't want this. Years later, a few years ago, I was traveling on the road and we stopped at this person's house in Willits, California, and they had redwoods just right in their backyard. So it was my first experience to get to spend a couple days just wandering around with these redwoods. And they actually had a special needs child who glommed right onto me and I fell in love with, and because he could see things in a different way that I couldn't. So me and him were walking in the woods one day. And of course, trees are very quick to be like, hey, take a deep breath. Because I'll go, how do I get more clarity on I get these grasps of things and I want to get them better. How do I get it? And endlessly it goes, take a deep breath. I'm like, oh yeah, how do I keep forgetting that? Sure, take a deep breath. So here I am breathing all the way in and all the way out the way that I do when I'm alone with the trees. And I'm getting this voice clearer and clearer with each deeper breath that I have. It's such a sassy lady, I don't know, Aunt Jemima, a mom that's just like, girl, what are you doing? And so, come on, dig those deep breaths. And I'm like, all right. And I'm just wandering around, following this voice, trying to get clarity. Do you guys get that we're radio antennas? That we're both transmitting and receiving, and that's a lot of what I'm talking about is what we're doing is by taking deep breaths, you're almost fine-tuning your channel out of the static. So here I am walking around trying to fine-tune my channel, breathing all the way in, breathing all the way out. And finally, I breathe all the way out, which I do by going all the way to the ground. And there's this little locust bug. And it's like, hey, it's me. I'm talking to you. And I'm like, oh, okay. And of course, the gambit of self-doubt and unbelief. But I'm like, you know what? I'm going to run with this. Sure. Hey, how you doing? What's up? It's like, I got to tell you something. This whole time, all these years, and it comes in a little sing-song. I don't know the song anymore, but it said, we were always just trying to get you to be aware. And you took it the wrong way and you ran real far with it because I was like, oh, aware? Like a werewolf? No, we were trying to tell you to be aware. And I stand up and I take a deep breath and I find out for the first time that the house we're staying on is on the corner of Lupine Way and Lupine Drive. And Lupine means wolf. So I have this big epiphany, and here I'm on Wolf Street and Wolf Lane, breathing in, talking to this bug, going, gosh, girl, we were just trying to tell you to be aware. And I find that that's often how spirit will speak to me, is like a slap in the face, like should have had a V8, where it's like, oh, how did I not get that? Here I am thinking so hard as a young kid going, oh, be a werewolf. All right, I'm going to get a whole bunch of people together. We're going to do that. And then here I am 15 years later going, no, you missed the message. But here we are. It's cool. It's not like it's, maybe you couldn't get it till now, but that really the point was to be aware. And so I really took it to heart after that point of like, okay, I got the message. I'll stop trying to turn into other animals now. I, of course, let that go some time ago, but maybe I was holding on a little. I had wanted to start with that story to kind of liven the mood, to just say that, like, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing, but that the message that I'm getting are not mine. I'm just here to go, hey, I was told this thing and it helped me. And gosh, I just hope that by talking about it, maybe it helps you too. Is the only thing I'm really doing up here, is you guys are just letting me do that, and I appreciate that, and I hope that something sticks. Anything. Awareness is the most important key. If you're not aware where you're at and what you're doing, if I wasn't aware of that bug, if I wasn't aware of the insight to take a deep breath to begin with, if I had gotten that insight and then just gone, oh, that's just my imagination, that's just me, that's just whatever, I cannot stress enough that the imagination is the biggest tool the creator ever gave you. How weird that we go, oh, that's just in your head. What? That's magic. You can create entire scenarios and conversations and people and things in your head, like, easily. And we do it like every night, and like, oh, but that's not real. Whatever. That's very real to me. And all I'm saying is that's the tool. That's the place with which you can then build upon or open yourself to receive any sort of frequencies you want to, I guess, or can, with awareness. We kind of get through all that self-doubt first, though. Like, you can be aware all day long, but if you're aware of the things happening around you and within you and then going, oh, but that's not real, well, then that's where your awareness is at, and that's fine. But at least be aware that that's where you're at, I guess. And like, accept that for what it is in the moment, but to say, you get to choose, like, whatever you want. For me, it was the fact that I was not a happy person. And going down this path, like, all I wanted to do was be happy. And I am now, like, 95% of the time. I think before I was 95% of the time miserable and suicidal. So, like, I'm here now because I chose to believe in what I was experiencing, and I choose continuously to be aware of my experiences, other people, their experiences, the world, those experiences, without being overwhelmed. It's enough to just say, hey, you ever get like an insight that just says, hey, turn here, or like, don't do that, or like, go this way instead. And then how often do we sit maybe and go, well, what is this? What is that? I'm not doing that. I had my own plans. The awareness enough to go, yeah, what happens if I do that? I traveled the whole country in my van trying to do that. I was so scared to just go with what my intuition told me that I said, you know what? This is my chance. I'm going to get in my car. And if a voice in my head says, turn left here, what's it going to hurt? I'll go down that road and see what's down there. It led me to some really interesting things that I wouldn't have otherwise experienced if I had just stuck with the highway and not listened. But sure, I had those days where I'm like, no, I had my own plan. I'm going this way. Stop it. Well, then that's a choice too, and that's fine. You're going to go down that river, whether you're making dams or whether you're creating new tributaries or whether you're just surrendering and going with the flow. My goal currently is to surrender and go with the flow. And look, it led me here, like in front of all you guys. Like, I didn't plan this. We've known each other a long time. And this is now, here we are, being here now together. I digress. The breath is the quickest way we can get to a quick awareness. So I'm going to do that again because it usually gets me into a better flow state. Because also I think I talk so fast that I'll forget to breathe. And then I'll go, oh, shoot, what was I talking about? This idea of we spend so much of our time, like, right? How much time do you guys spend time traveling where you're either in the past or you're in the future in your thoughts, right? Is that just me, or do you guys do that too? Where you're constantly thinking about something else. You're not thinking about what's happening right in front of you right here now. It's easy. That's how we do. That's the evolution of our brains. These very complicated, organs that are like processing all of this. Do you know that we only take in 10% of what we're experiencing at any given time? That's all your brain can handle. 10% of visual, 10% of hearing. Like there's things that are happening in this room, Wi-Fi, radio signals, energy. But your brain can literally only take in 10%. And at that point it says, okay, this is all that I can take. And then creates an image and an experience around that with assumed knowledge, Like everyone has a blind spot right here. You can't see there, but you can't see that you can't see that. Your brain just fills it in and has been since you were a baby. So like you're not aware of that. Not that you need to be aware of it, but it's cool to be aware of your like awareness, I guess. To say that this experience is only as much as we can take of it anyway. So why not make the most of it? Like, you're trying to see it now, aren't you? You can't. Try it. You literally cannot. Your brain won't let you. Your brain is very efficient at creating a reality that suits you. That's really just that will help you survive more than anything else. It's outdated technology to say, make sure I'm aware enough that if something's behind me, I can divert all my energy to see that in my peripheral vision real quick, But we're evolving past that to the point of like, well, can I be aware enough to take enough breaths to see somebody's energetic being so that I can know what's going to happen in a situation when I walk in? Are we all in agreement that our bodies have an electromagnetic field that our heart is generating? Yep. Okay. So that even though we can't see that, we recognize that I have that, you all have that I think on a normal day, it comes out to about here on each of us. And that's where your comfort zone is with people. That's why people get in your bubble. That's literally your energetic bubble is your electromagnetic field. Well, with deep breaths, I've been able to practice and like spread that out way out, A lot of us do energy work, and that's how I do that is with my awareness and my deep breath. I can try to stretch my electromagnetic field out just as far as I can, I like to think that it can cover the whole planet if I'm really putting that moment of intentional awareness to it. I think I talked to you guys last time about like all these words to say magic or ceremony, or I don't know, spirituality kind of like coat an idea. I need to find better words around that, but I don't have them yet. These are just sounds that help me transmute ideas to your brain, which is crazy anyway. The fact that my vocal cords are vibrating the air in the room, and that's hitting your ears in a way that your brain is then translating them into thoughts. And then we agree that when I say purple, that sound vibration makes you think of purple and I think of purple, but we actually have no way to know that we're thinking of the same thing. It's just the concept of purple that we all agree upon. So that always gets me, but I digress again. Shoot, I forgot where I was going with that one. But that
energy fields.
Yeah, that we can be more aware of them to say, now I lost it. And I know that too, that sometimes that's just not where I was supposed to go right now. That we're going to find. I'm going to take another deep breath and see where it takes us. So we got what, about 10 more minutes?
Ish.
You started late.
Oh, you gonna let me talk longer? That's fair. I got stuck behind Sunday drivers. Be aware of the fall too. Are you guys aware that like, oh my gosh, it's the most beautiful time of year right now? The trees are falling because in a week or so we're gonna go, all the leaves are down. What happened to fall? And if we're not driving here, I was even trying to be. And trust me, I'm practicing what I preach. I'm not up here going, I know what I'm doing. I'm going up here going, I'm doing it, and I'm just talking to you guys about what I'm doing. Driving up here, getting stuck thinking about what I'm going to talk about or what I did last night. And then I have to go like, oh my gosh, let me look around. Look at these trees. They're beautiful and they're shedding their leaves. I like a quote that's going around that say, fall shows us how beautiful letting go can be. I really appreciate that. The idea too that like we can't view winter trees as dead. They're not. They're sleeping. A whole year is like a day for a tree, which is why we really got to slow down to hear them because they're just on a longer timeline than we are. They're all way older than all of us. And that, they're just going to sleep. I'm like, that's rest. Like, that's fair. It's our time to rest too. So many people in my life now deal with seasonal depression. And I'm like, Wish that I knew how to help them with that specifically, but I think it comes so much about the fact that we view winter as like, I don't know, this death period, and it's even death is not like that. That's a talk I'll have to do sometime, that I had a really long talk with a bug. And it was funny because he kind of really put me in my place. Like I was getting distracted and I was thinking about other things and I had to keep coming back to the breath to be present. And at one point he was like, do you understand how long it took me to get here to have this conversation with you? Can you just be here for a second? And I was like, oh, I'm sorry, little bug. He was the prettiest little like princely bug. He was like white and glistening at the Folklife Center. And it was very like a to-do. And then here I am going, because I find I'm present, I'm aware, I'm in the moment, and then I'm going, and then I'm like thinking about tomorrow, and I'm like, oh, how did I get here? Okay, back to the present, to the awareness, to the moment. Oh gosh, and then how did I get over here? And then, okay, awareness, back to the present moment. And at one point he was like, excuse me, is this a bad time? Like, I'm trying to do this with you. But it was this whole idea that death is not what we think it is. And it's hard for them to explain that in words. Trees have talked to me about it before, that like they don't experience suffering the way that we do. I used to so mourn dead trees or cut down trees. And it was like, yeah, but like that's not productive to us. And that's not really how this works. So you don't have an understanding enough to like give us that negative emotion. So don't do that. I was like, oh, okay. But definitely that bug was like, if you only understood the beautiful transitional thing that death actually is, we would A, not be so sad about it, and B, not take life so dang seriously. Like, I get it a lot that like we're here to enjoy this experience, but so much time we spend thinking about the end of it. It would be like reading a book and then only paying attention to like, well, what's the last page going to say? And it's like, but are you enjoying the story then if you're just worried about, or what the next book is? I find that a lot with religious sects, that it's all about what comes next. Well, I don't think we get to understand that in this lifetime. And the fact that we're so thinking about the next stage, how present are we being in this one? Enjoying, I get on that word enjoy a lot, literally enjoy. My whole year has been about acceptance and joy specifically for me. And joy can be hard when we're taught that suffering is existence, that this is supposed to be hard, that you're supposed to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. This very American maybe style train of thought of well, you can't have good without bad, and it's all dualistic. This very dualistic nature idea is a very human concept. The bugs have definitely come to me and said like, that's very limiting. Stop that. That's got to be life or death. Like, no, it's two parts of a much larger whole that if you could only really experience in this lifetime, you guys would really chill out a lot. And I was like, oh, thanks for that, little bug. And then he's like, cool, I'm out. Because I wasn't being present and aware enough with him. So like, that's what I got from the time, and that's what I'm giving to you now. So I'd like to do a whole talk on that at some point. But that's
the entire practice of like Zen meditation, which we do weekly here, by the way.
Plug.
Is about learning to be in the moment, about being aware, and the breath, which is a tool. It's
Yes.
not about the breath.
It's not even about the breath. It's a trick. It's a tool. Your body is a big, I don't know, what's a good word for it? Your body is a tool, pretty much. And
Your body is a vessel.
Your body is a vessel.
For the awareness.
Yes.
For part of the awareness of what the universe is itself.
Yes. And just like the breath is not the point, the body is not the point. Like the body is, how about that? Do y'all get that you are more than this body? Yeah? That like you are that as an electromagnetic field, you are an electromagnetic being that has been and will be after that?
Yeah.
That's a tricky one. Yeah. That's a overarching thing that I'll say that at least I have had that experience to say that like you guys are that. And I guess that's each person's belief, I think it definitely changes how I view my experiences, and also a lot of the information that I get in my I don't know, my musings, that like if I weren't to believe that, then I would disregard a lot of the things that I get about past experience that are beyond this life or others or etc. But to say that your body is the vessel, and so your body's not the point, it's the tool. So like even if you get pains in your bodies, there's a wonderful book, Louise Hayes has this idea that like every dis-ease we have is really a thought program that we've been running so long that it manifests in our body to try to make us aware of it. So for instance, when I was having chest pains in this book, it says, well, that's because you're putting others before yourself. And so it had an affirmation to counteract it, which was, I'm free to be me and I allow others the freedom to be themselves. And so whenever I would have that pain, instead of going, oh no, I need to go to the hospital, I would go, okay, I must be thinking unloving thoughts to myself and putting everybody before myself. Let me be aware enough about that in this moment to think something new. And that takes practice. That's like running a train the other way. It's got to like slow down and come to a stop. It's not like automatically you're just going to go the other way. It's not overnight. It's definitely the slowing down, being aware enough to know I'm thinking things like other people are more worthy than me of my own love and affection, slowing that down to be aware enough to go, oh shoot, I don't really want to be thinking that. Why am I thinking that anyway? Who put that there? That's not my thought. Let me think something else. And then slowly working that train the other way to go, I am worthy of my own love and affection. I can do that until it's eventually full steam ahead and it's just your new programming and you're running it subconsciously. I used to do gratefuls every day and I would write them down, but I find now that I'm just doing it in my head. Like that was the tool to get me going in the other direction. I guess the opposite of gratefulness would be sorrow. I was constantly going, oh, I'm sorry. And now I'm going, I'm grateful. But I had to be aware enough that I was doing that to be able to do something new. You can't just start something new without knowing the programming. Yep. So that your body is that tool to be able to, and all of our feelings and emotions are tools, and the breath is a tool, like to better use our body. Just like water, like if you're not giving your body enough water, it can't do all the stuff it needs to do. Like that's just body 101 that we didn't really get taught. They're like, yeah, drink your 8 ounces every day. Do you know that 8 glasses of water is a half gallon? A half gallon of water is when they say drink 8 ounce glasses of water a day. They're saying drink a half gallon of water every day. I carry one around with me. I've lifted in my car. Nobody's doing that. They tried to plumb that in. Or physical education in school where they're like, here, do the arm things and do the push-ups. I didn't realize till a couple of years ago, they were trying to teach me how to stretch every day. But I didn't pick that up at the time. I'm like, why are they making me do these things I don't want to do? And I didn't retain the information of, they were trying to teach me how to do daily self-care for my body being. But they don't teach it in that kind of way that you're like, this is human 101 to say, drink your water and move your muscles, or you don't get them super long. I don't know. Or they're going to hurt later. But the idea of the awareness, so then we're all just this vessel for this brain, or this vessel for this consciousness, but in this current form, it's all happening in this small 7-pound little piece of us, to say that, to understand that this needs oxygen and water and salt to do all the things that I'm asking it to do, So if I'm fuzzy, I can take a deep breath or drink a glass of water, or I don't know, lick some salt, to say the salt of the earth, to say that,
hey, come here,
to be aware enough instead of going, what's wrong with me, to go, what is my body trying to tell me? So aware enough instead of going, I am the worst, to go, why do I feel that way? Because for me, it was suddenly I would be sad and I wouldn't know how I got there. And then it would last for weeks. And then I'd be in this hole that I couldn't dig myself out of. So I got better at that, and initially going, as soon as I felt that sadness come along, to go, what was I just thinking about? To take that moment of awareness to go, I'm aware enough that my emotion just changed, and I'm aware enough to go, let me take a beat, because you owe it to yourself. Doesn't matter if you're in a room full of people or you're at work, you take that moment for yourself. You don't owe nothing to nobody else except for yourself to go, hold on, let me take a moment. What was I just thinking about? I was thinking about how I'm not good enough. Let me think something new. Because what could it literally hurt? Nothing. If anything, it helps. And I'm here as living proof that it helped me. Like, this is fake it till you make it 101. This is actually, I learned later, called cognitive behavioral therapy. Yep. CBT. Learned way late that that's what I've been doing all along. Fake it till you make it worked for me. To say, I'm aware enough of my thoughts to know how I got to this point. And that's okay for now. Like, I don't even want to get you guys to the next step and be like, and then change your thoughts, because it's not even, like I said, you got to slow that train down before you can go the other way.
There was a big study done. I may have said this before. there was a big study done where they actually proved that if you are an unhappy person in general, if you force yourself to fake smile for like 5 minutes or whatever, it actually tricks your brain into raising your endorphin levels and makes you happier.
True.
The tail wagging the dog thing, it's literally scientifically proven to be true. It's, I don't know what my kid's doing.
Smile and being happy.
But that's literally true.
Voting.
It's kind of, to me, it's kind of there's a frustrating aspect of it because people will come up to you and you'll be in a kind of a down place. They'll be like, smile.
Oh yeah, why don't you smile, girl?
Yeah, you should smile. You're prettier when you smile. Whatever. And that's that's hurtful. It's like you're not acknowledging my right to
Be where you're at.
Where I am. But on a personal level, if you choose to make the difference and say, you know what, I've been in this place long enough and I feel like trying to do something to proactively change my brain chemistry to make me feel better, damn it. Like you said, what is it going to hurt to look in the mirror or whatever and, smile. Force yourself to smile, For me, it's like a Frankenstein thing. Like, the people will tell you to smile in pictures. I'm like, I don't do that because it always comes out looking really freaky. But, it actually makes a difference.
Smiling and maybe even counting 1, 2, 3 gets a 10 and feel it, see it, it doesn't work, whatever. Yeah. What is going to hurt? But it's proven. It's all just everything we're experiencing anyway is just a way for our brains to release our own chemicals to give us serotonin or oxytocin and whatever to say, here's some feel-good juice. Like, good job. You did the stimulus to provide the feel-good juice. Like, you pet a puppy, you smiled, you thought something nice. Puppies, see? And then you smile. Yeah, you don't have to force a smile. You can just think about puppies. Make yourself look at something that makes you happy. There you go. Look at some puppies.
Take a picture.
Think about puppies. What a puppy you like, Because that's just a trick. Like, I'm just here to go, hey, I learned a couple shortcuts. That's a great shortcut to say, let's trick ourselves into feeling better. For me, it's a lot of like, let me trick myself into being aware of all the ways that I don't let myself feel better and then go from there. But it's nice if you can just skip that and go, let me just smile for a while. And so now I'm in the habit of, I try to, even if I'm having a bad day, almost subconsciously, I try to smile at strangers when I pass them on the street, if they drive by or something. And it's funny that it's an automatic response. It's one of those little kid things that we have, that if you smile at somebody, they're going to smile back before they've even thought about it. So then you can pass that along. So not only are you now experiencing your release of positive endorphins, but you've now passed that on to somebody else just visually. And they might have been like, I didn't want to smile right now. I think that's better than telling people you should smile. Well, how about you smile and then maybe I'll subconsciously smile back? Somebody said after Halloween, we should all buy a bunch of those blood capsules. So when men tell us to smile, we should just pop a blood capsule and then smile, a really gross smile, and be like, are you happy now? Because that is a really interesting thing that we often can't see what's happening in ourselves. So we're all reflections in these ways that it's easier for somebody else to say, you're not smiling, you're not happy. Let me tell you to do something about that. Than them going, well, how do I get a smile? It's easier for them to see in the same way that that's why judgment's such a weird thing, because it's easy to see how somebody else is messing up or how somebody else is doing well. But it's really just a reflection of how we are also doing that, because you would not, as a frequency being, you would not be able to experience that. If someone's doing something you don't like, you could not experience that if you did not also have that within you. But in the same way, if you're seeing someone that's doing something you really like, could not experience that if it did not also exist within you. It's a way for us to continuously experience ourselves, for better or for worse. But then we run into that trap where we go, I know what's wrong with you, and this is what you need to do. No, it is all a self-experience to go, now I better understand myself, and I know how I can help myself in the future. Because we all have blinders when it comes to ourselves. That's why this is so effective for me. If I'm just sitting alone in a room by myself, I cannot make nearly as much progress as if I come and talk to you guys about it, This is super helpful to me, and I hope it's helpful to y'all as well. And I think that this is the point. I want to make the question part longer because I really like your questions. So I think at that point, I'll take a breath. And if anybody wants to bring anything else up to continuously talk about, there we go. We got one. Go, Rick.
one of the trauma groups at VA teaches about the area of awareness, and one of their therapy programs was built by a doctor named Kuntz.
Mhm.
And Kuntz was a survivor of a concentration camp, and he describes in his writings how he developed an area of awareness within him. And his teachings are what VA are using right now in helping people with PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think we fully recognize how therapeutic that area is, because it is totally safe for us.
And how self-responsible it ends up being. Like at some point, somebody can hand you all the tools you'd ever need, but if you don't pick them up and use them, then it was for naught. A place that I worked told me a similar story about two twins who had survived the Holocaust, and they came back and they went their separate ways and lived their separate lives. And so they were being studied by this doctor to say, well, how did you grow? You both were in the same exact predicament. And one person never got their life off the ground, was homeless, was a drug abuser, just could not let that trauma go. And the other person ended up being a doctor and helping lots of other people and was well-to-do and was able to travel the world and spread positivity. And so it was like, well, what was the difference? Like what changed? And it was that the person who never got off the ground chose that, like chose to carry that wound around as kind of like an excuse for the way life was going to be for the rest of their lives, while the other person was aware that they could do that and chose something else instead. So much of it's like you don't get to pick the card you get handed. Some people get handed some really terrible cards, but then as a human being, it is then your opportunity and choice to then choose what you're going to do with that, to carry that around with you as a burden, or to, I don't know, put those cards down and pick up some new ones. I think that's how cards work. You can discard. There's a discard pile. That analogy got away from me. But to say that it's so much a choice of doing what you're given and then doing with what you're given and then choosing what you're going to do with it, and then sharing that in positive ways that man's now helping other people, which is, I think, a lot of what we want to do. Like a lot of us, we're altruistic. So it's not even that we just want a better life for ourselves. It's we want a better life so that we can be better for the people around us and the people we want to help.
Share something else regarding helping other people.
Otherwise, why are we all here together,
Right. I was part of a PTSD, a trauma survivor group for about a year. And, which, by the way, I thought I didn't need and would be totally useless to me. But as it turned out, the most beneficial thing, the thing that helped me grow the most in that group, was hearing other people struggling with the exact same things that I had been struggling with my entire life because of various traumatic situations. And being able to look at them and say, hey, this is what I did.
Yeah.
Or just help them to, say, I've been there. This is how I handled that, or whatever. And reaching out to other people who have the same, and, it just occurred to me, we all have the same traumas in some way or another. We all have the same traumas. We all have loss. We all have frustration, just varying degrees.
Joy and sadness. Continue.
And reaching out to other people who are struggling with these things at that moment, and being able to offer them some comfort and support, that turns out to be one of the most healing things to you.
Mm-hmm. To go, same reflection. And then also, here's how my experience gave me knowledge to work through that, which is such a beautiful thing. as human beings, we all have way more in common than we ever have separate. Like, as we all have similar body shapes, we all got these limbs, we all got these brains, like, we all are going through similar things. We all have sadness, we all have joys, we all have, woes. So, like, it's weird that we get so separate, like, oh, we're different. Like, well, you're much more different than a slug than you are another person of a different color or different religion. And, that's much more different than, I don't know, sand. I don't know. Like, so it's crazy when we're like, oh, well, we're different. No, we're all really going through a lot of the same things. And when we talk to them about it, it ends up going a lot of, oh, same. But I found that people don't, personally, when you go, oh, I've been there and I know exactly what's that like, a lot of people shut down. They don't want that because they want to maybe almost like, I don't know, feel validated in their suffering. And if you go, well, me too, and let me help you, hit or miss.
Yeah.
But brings up a really valid point that I'd love to talk to you guys about, especially as some of my, I don't know, but you guys have more life experience than I do. To say that in my experience and my research, it's that we are all holding on to the same traumas that our parents gave us, that their parents gave them, that their parents gave them, that their parents gave them. That seem true? Like, we're holding on to these very similar things about, and it's usually of a similar sect. It's abandonment, or it's not enoughness, or it's, not being good the way you are, or having to please others before you please yourself. These like very particular things that were not yours. We're not your parents, we're not their parents, but just get continuously passed down in this almost like tumbling forward sort of way. Just this like, oh, just passed down. My mom dealt with abandonment, so now I'm working through abandonment, in our own ways and the ways that it manifests. And when we're aware that that's what's happening, we're able to not only do something different about it, choose again and go, okay, now I'm aware that I'm dealing with this and I can actively work towards healing that ancestral wound, really. It helped me forgive my parents a lot because they were just children in grown-up bodies. Now that I'm an adult, I go, oh, shoot, nobody knows what they're doing? I thought when I was a kid, I thought that you got to a point where you knew all the stuff, and then you were like a grown-up. So I remember when I was 20 and my mom said, well, Tiffany, I was still figuring all this out too. And I said, oh, you haven't finished doing that yet? She goes, nobody finishes doing that. That's not true. I said, that would have been information I could have known a lot sooner in my life to know that there's no completion point and that everybody is continuously learning. And so I was able to forgive my parents to go, oh, you were just giving me the best that you had to work with. And that wasn't, and that's because their parents gave them the best that they had. And that's nobody's fault. But it's now my opportunity and responsibility to do something different about it. Instead of making the same mistakes my parents did and living my life with these feelings of not enoughness or abandonment, to go, okay, well, now I know that and I know better, to be able to self-reevaluate and reprogram in a positive and intentional way. And then now that I'm doing that, because I feel like for a long time I was looking at my parents going, well, I wish you were better for me. And now by bettering myself, they're bettering themselves. Like, it was almost this paradoxical thing that once I let control over anybody else go and how my family interacted with me and just said, I'm just going to do my part. Now they're doing their own parts too. And now it's getting passed down to our next generation, all my nieces and nephews, who now have many better role models because we're all doing our self-work instead of going, well, this is what's wrong with you. Now we're going, wow, how is that a reflection of how I can better myself? And then that's getting reflected, that, as I told you before, my dad's like, hey, I'm going to do that too. And like, wow, that's so great. That this time and now I do feel is really potent, that that's been happening for eons probably. We've just been subconsciously passing down trauma like it was what we do. Well, now never has to be like it was before. And it's up to us to break that chain and go, we can choose something better, but only when we're aware that that's what's happening. So that was a long jump from you. Any other questions or comments or want to talk about? Anything? Nothing? Maybe? No? Well, that sounds good. I could talk forever, but I won't. So thank you so much.
All right.